Hello guys, welcome to the fiction series. Today we are gonna see, what if Naruto was a soul in chains? Part 1. If you want more awesome fan fiction like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. So without wasting any time, let's get into the video. A young boy ran home, a wide grin on his face from the day's events. It was his first day at Karakura Junior High School and he had made many friends and he couldn't wait to get back to the house and tell his mother about his day. As he approached his house, he noticed that there were no lights on in the house, but he shrugged it off. His mother wasn't one for wasting electricity. "Mom, I'm home." He stood in the hall by the front door, waiting for his mother to greet him. All he received was silence. "Mom?" he shouted, frowning slightly. He looked in the kitchen, but he saw no one there. Checking the living room and the downstairs toilet, he ascended the stairs. "Mom?" he called again, fear creeping into his voice. "Mommy, why wouldn't you answer me?" His voice trembled. He noticed that one of the doors was shut and a light was on inside the room. He barely noticed a moving shadow cross the gap in the door. With a shaking hand, he opened the door and he screamed. In the middle of the room, his mother was hanging from a light fixture in the ceiling. Her body revolved around and he saw her vacant eyes and blue lips. Tears spilled from his eyes. "Mommy," he screeched before running over. He tried to pull her down, but he wasn't strong enough. As he collapsed to his knees, he became eye level with her hand. Wrapped around it was the green crystal pendant he had bought her the week before. With one last pained scream, he collapsed to the floor, unconscious. Crash. Wah. Naruto screamed as he fell backwards, his head bouncing at the floor. He groaned and held a head to his hand and he heard laughter around him. "Mr. Namikaze." He opened his eyes painfully to see a disapproving Itachi-sensei frowning at him. "Sleeping in class again, are we?" she asked sternly. Naruto chuckled sheepishly. "Haha, sorry." The teacher rolled her eyes and made her way back to the front of the classroom. I hate to see her leave, but I love to watch her. Actually, I love both of those things." He shook his head before picking both himself and his chair up from the floor and sitting back down. "Right then class, remember that your assignments are due in next Monday. Have a good weekend," she said with a smile, seconds before the bell rang. Naruto stood up and shouldered his bag and turning to leave, he came face to face with a smirking orange-haired teen. How many times was that now, Naruto? 7th time this week. Ichigo Kurosaki asked his blonde friend. "You shouldn't stay up so late." Naruto scoffed. "Gee, sleep is for the weak and I sure as hell ain't weak." He boasted, but both teens knew he was kidding. "Yeah, sure," a female voice said, dripping with sarcasm. "That explains why you were zonked out like a baby 5 minutes ago." He turned around again to see another of his friends, Totsuki Arasa, was smirking at him as well. Naruto glared at her. "Excuse me, who's the one who won every one of our spars exactly, he asked mockingly, receiving a punch for his cheek. Taking it to the face, he bent backwards from the force of it before standing back upright seconds later. He smirked at the black-haired girl. Was that supposed to do something? He collapsed to the ground in pain after receiving a swift kick to the balls, courtesy of Totsuki. "Why?" he groaned, holding his crotch. The girl smirked down at him. "I'll tell sensei you can't make practice today." And with that she was off. Ichigo took pity on his friend and helped him up onto his feet and he hung onto the strawberry. "Don't know why you provoke her like that, you know how it always turns out." The two walked out of the classroom and Naruto chuckled weakly. She loves me really. She just doesn't know how to express it except through violence," he said confidently. Ichigo's sweat dropped and decided not to say anything about it. Eventually they made it to the front gate of Karakura High School and Naruto detached himself from his friend. "Well, thanks for the help, Ichigo, but didn't think I can make it from here by myself," he said with a grin. Ichigo returned it with a smirk. "Yeah, until you run into a girl and piss her off." He ducked a punch and walked away. "See you Monday, Naruto," he said with an over-the-shoulder wave. "Yeah, you too, you gingerberry," he shouted before walking in the direction of the shops. After all, a guy's gotta eat and Naruto had run out of ramen. A travesty that must be amended, he mentally declared. Later, night had fallen and Naruto was on his way home with 4 bags full of groceries. He was whistling a tune he heard on the radio before he heard a faint screeching noise. His gaze narrowing, his whistling stopped before continuing as he took a detour through an alleyway. As he walked in the shadows, his whistling slowed. As he finished the last note, he jumped out of the way as a giant hand smashed into where he had been standing. As the dust cloud cleared, he caught a glimpse of black and blue monster standing where he was before. The creature turned around, revealing a white mask with a vicious visage. "Such delicious spiritual energy, it will be mine." It roared as it once again tried to kill the blonde and once again he jumped away, this time dropping his shopping. Lifting his hand up, a clink of a chain was heard and something gleamed in the darkness. Suddenly, with a wave of his hand, chains emerged from his sleeve, which proceeded to wrap around the monster. "Bind," he muttered, and the monster was captured by the chains, and it screeched as it tried to escape its binds. The end of the chain hovered in front of the mask, and a green crystal that was on it pointed at the monster. "Seal," he muttered again. The crystal stabbed into the masked creature's face, and it screeched as its body dispersed into pure energy, which was absorbed by the crystal. After glowing a dark red, it returned to its previous green color, and the chains retreated up Naruto's sleeves. As he lowered his hand, the chain clinked, and hanging under his wrist was the small green crystal. Picking up his shopping, he left the alley, making his way back home. The full moon illuminated the streets of Karakura town on a quiet night, the sounds of televisions and distant cars filling the silence. Naruto walked down the street, with his hands in his pockets and hood pulled up over his head. His head bobbed to the rock music coming from his earphones, lips soundlessly forming the lyrics. He turned a corner, after waiting for a single car to pass through the traffic lights. Eventually he entered the more rough area of Karakura, where the common citizen would not venture. The far and few between street lamps cast a large shadow behind him, causing it to be magnified on the wall next to him. After walking for 10 minutes he stopped, his foot tapping along to a particularly catchy part of the song, and leaned against an old, decrepit wall, his other foot behind his back, resting on the wall. The wall he was leaning against was attached to a very old house, abandoned for many years. Many rumors surrounded this house, stories that spoke of the haunting rattling of chains, and tales that told of the pained screeches of the dead. Naruto smirked, this place had indeed been haunted by an earthbound spirit. Its screeches were the one the tales mentioned, however the chains did not belong to it. Those stories were more recent, after the screams had stopped the rumors of the chains were born. In fact, those very chains had been what stopped the screams in the first place. Sadly, the irony was lost on most people, on all but one other person. The person who just so happened to be the one Naruto was waiting for and who also happened to be 10 minutes late, Naruto noticed after checking his watch. Noticing something move in the shadows in the alley opposite, he tensed before dropping his guard as a black-haired, glasses-wearing teen exited the alleyway. He smirked before taking out his earphones, allowing them to dangle over the neck of his hoodie. "You're late," he said, smirk growing slightly as the teen opposite him twitched. "No, I am not," the boy said, adjusting his glasses. "If you paid more attention to your surroundings, instead of listening to your earphones, you would have noticed that I have been here since you arrived. Ergo, it is you who is late." He raised his arm and pulled back his sleeve, allowing Naruto to see his watch. Naruto squinted in order to see it, and he sweat dropped when he saw it say 10:45, and he looked down at his watch, which said 10:40. Chuckling sheepishly, he rubbed the back of his head with his other hand. "Damn, my watch is wrong." "Sorry, Ryu." The last Quincy shook his head at his friend. "Acquaintance. Cohort. Occasional partner. Yeah, why not?" Pushing up his glasses, Ryu spoke. "So, Naruto, I assume this meeting is about the increase in hollow activity lately," the Quincy said. Naruto nodded before looking around suspiciously. "Maybe this conversation should be taken inside. Who may be listening out here." Nodding at the blonde's words, Ryu followed him into the abandoned house. He covered his mouth and coughed as the dust in the entrance hallway entered his throat. Naruto chuckled. Yeah, sorry about that, I haven't been here in a while," he said. The Quincy kept his mouth covered as he smirked. "I hope that doesn't mean you've been neglecting your training." Naruto chuckled again. As Ryu suggested, Naruto used the abandoned house to practice his more tame skills. His more destructive attacks were not suitable for such a place, but this was a more than safe place for practicing the basics. Out of the way, unused, and with a history worthy of keeping even the most courageous teenagers away. "Nah," he shook his head as they entered the living room. "There have been plenty of hollows hanging about for me to practice on." He collapsed onto an old couch, causing a cloud of dust to explode from under him. As he coughed viciously, Ryu took much more care in sitting on an equally old armchair, being cautious not to cause another dust cloud. "Speaking of which," the Quincy said, grimacing at the dust on his once immaculate trousers, "we should be more careful when taking out hollows, and by we I mean you," he said calmly. Naruto, however, was not as calm. "Eh?" he yelled. "What do you mean by that?" he demanded, glaring at the Quincy. The black-haired teen adjusted his glasses. "When you are combating hollows, the spiritual pressure you release is huge. It is no wonder you have been attacked so often these days. Frankly, I am surprised that a Shinigami," he spat the word like it was poison, "hasn't been sent to investigate it yet. Basically, I am saying your atrocious control is the reason you are attacked so often. It is fortunate that the hollows came straight to you instead of going after pluses." Naruto pouted. "Geez, Ryu, way to lay it on thick." He sighed in resignation. Okay, I'll try to cut down on the spirit energy I am emitting. Just excuse me if I can't control it as well as you, Mr. Quincy." Ryu rolled his eyes before standing up. Perhaps it would be best if you took a break from training for a while, soon the hollows will lose interest. At least you can hide it well outside of a fight, otherwise the Shinigami would be on your doorstep. Naruto jumped up and glared at the Quincy. What do you mean stop training? He yelled, I still need to learn how to use this power. Uryu sighed and laid a hand on Naruto's shoulder. Listen, Naruto. You awoke your powers 6 months ago, and already you're defeating hollows and mastered the basic abilities of your chains. He said, it took me years to reach your level, and Shinigami take even longer. He said Shinigami with a sneer. Naruto scoffed. That's because they have to butter up their Zanpakuto until they let them borrow their power. Uryu had told him all about Shinigami, and he wasn't impressed when he learned that they were next to useless without their Zanpakutos. But really, I'm doing better than you? He said with a grin. Uryu rolled his eyes. Yes, keep your ego in check. I swear that alone can take out an Itachi. Naruto chuckled before standing up. Do my ears deceive me? Uryu Ishida, top of the class, last Quincy and king of the stick up the arses, making a joke, Uryu rolled his eyes again. Anyway, I believe that while you may be playing a part in the recent hollow appearances, you are not the only reason. He said as they made their way to the door. Stopping in front of the door, he turned back to the blonde behind him. I'm sure you've noticed Kurosaki's rising spirit energy by now. Naruto nodded. Heck, I've been noticing it since I got my own powers. After he had awoken his powers, he started to feel other people's spirit energy, and the most prevalent had been Ichigo's. When he went to school the next day, he had almost been crippled by his best friend's energy. When he talked about it with Uryu, he simply told him that he had become extra sensitive to spirit pressure. He had been fine against the hollow due to the rush of power he felt, and Uryu knew how to control his own. Over time he grew used to sensing others' energy, and no, he barely noticed. That is until Ichigo's energy started rising. We should keep an eye on him, maybe he has a similar power to your own. Naruto nodded in agreement, and as they left the house, they felt a massive burst of energy that belonged to a hollow. Naruto span round to face Uryu. That's coming from Ichigo's house. Without another word the two dashed off, using their respective techniques to get there as soon as possible. Then give me that blade, Shinigami. My name is Rukia Kichiki. And my name is Ichigo Kurosaki. Naruto watched, shocked as Ichigo plunged the Shinigami's blade into his body before exploding in an incredible surge of power, one that almost knocked him from his position in the sky if it were not for Uryu's hand grabbing him by the arm. Speaking of which, he saw Uryu's face, eyes narrowed dangerously on the now powerless Shinigami. Shoving his arm off, Naruto grabbed Uryu's attention and he shook his head. I don't think now's the time to act on your hatred. He warned. With one last glare at both Rukia Kichiki and Ichigo, Uryu flashed away and Naruto focused on the now unconscious Ichigo. He was highly impressed with how he handled the situation and he watched curiously as the Shinigami held up a device to and limped over to Ichigo's family. Tensely, he saw her bring it to Karen's face and he prepared himself in case she tried anything, but a hand on his shoulder stopped him. Jumping away, he glared at the one who did so. Standing there was a man with blonde hair hidden behind a green and white bucket hat. The man smiled lazily. Hey, no need to be so tense. He pulled out a fan and held it to his face. No need to worry about her, she's just making sure they remember none of what happened tonight. Losing his glare, he took one last glance at the man before shrugging and with a small flash of green light he vanished. Urahara watched him go, an intrigued look on his face. How very interesting. He muttered before descending to the ground. Would you like some help with that? Ring. Naruto groaned as he covered his face with his arm, blocking the morning light creeping through the slightly open curtains of his bedroom window. He was also trying to ignore the irritating ringing of his alarm clock, rolling over and covering his ears with his pillow. After a minute of the annoying alarm, he growled and punched it, sending it crashing into the opposite wall, making it ricochet off it and smash him in the balls. He jolted upright, his face a mask of sheer agony, his eyebrow twitching. Rolling off his bed, he let out a moan of pain as he began to crawl towards his ensuite bathroom. With a shaking hand, he grabbed the edge of the sink and pulled himself up, taking deep breaths to get through the pain. After taking a few minutes to calm down, he grabbed his toothbrush and toothpaste and brushed his teeth. As he did his morning bathroom routine, he had the nagging feeling he forgot about something. When he remembered, he nearly choked on his brush in surprise. So he thought, after hacking his toothbrush into the sink. Ichigo's a Shinigami now. He picked up the toothbrush and put it away, before rinsing his mouth out. His opinion on Shinigami wasn't exactly unbiased after all. The only things he had heard about Shinigami were from Ryu, and he wasn't going to say anything nice about them now, was he? As he flossed his teeth, he went over what he knew about Shinigami. 1. They sent pluses to the Soul Society. 2. They kill hollows. 3. They kill anything that could disrupt their sovereignty. 4. They're dead people. 5. They rely on the power of swords that were made of their soul, but were sentient beings, separate from them. Now, Naruto isn't someone who makes opinions based on what others tell him, but he hadn't heard anything nice about Shinigami, except maybe points 1 and 2. After all, he thought, throwing away his floss and reaching for the mouthwash, they kill hollows, I kill hollows, we should get on swell. Spit. Rinse. But then again, so did Quincy's, and they off them. So point 3 wasn't exactly helping his opinion of them, and it made him much less enthusiastic to reveal himself to them. Point 4 freaked him out, the only encounters with dead people I've had usually end up with a lot of blood and collateral damage. Seriously, how does no one worry about that? And point 5, well, Naruto sneered slightly. They rely on their swords to give them power, what if they lose their sword or it breaks or something? However, despite all this, he still wanted to form his own opinion on them. After all, if he listened to other people, he wouldn't be friends with the gentle giant Chad, or the hyperactive idiot that is Kigo, or even the delinquent Ichigo. Ah yes, he thought, leaving the bathroom the root of the matter. Well, I'm not going to stop hanging out with my best friend just because he's a Shinigami now. With a nod he went to his closet and got dressed. Before he left the room, he noticed the alarm clock lying on the floor. Giving it a fierce glare, he booted it across the room, and it flew out the window. With a sweat drop, he turned to leave before he got hit in the back of the head by the clock. Giving the clock an incredulous look, he backed away slowly before slamming the door shut behind him. If I didn't know any better, I'd say that clock was haunted. Naruto walked along the corridor on the way to class, his hands behind his head, with a slight limp. Alarm clocks hit hard. I wonder where Ichigo is, he's late. But then again, his house has a huge hole in it, so that might be why. His musings were cut short by a loud female voice. Ichigo. You knock her down and that's all you can say. Turning the corner, he saw Tatsuki yelling at Ichigo, with a girl with orange hair and large breasts on the floor next to them. What the heck's the matter with you? Before Ichigo could even begin to answer, Naruto butted into the conversation. Ish, calm down, Tatsuki. Ichigo can't help it if his scowl gets in the way of his vision. The two turned around to see Naruto approaching them with a grin. Tatsuki snickered and Ichigo scowled before turning to the girl on the floor. Sorry about that, you gonna be alright? He held his hand out. Here. Looking into his face, the girl gasped before standing up, her hands behind her back. And no, that's alright really, I ha v volleyball. That's right. Volleyball, volleyball, volleyball. She quickly turned round and ran off. Orihim. Tatsuki called after her. They watched blankly as the girl ran away. What's the matter with her? Ichigo asked obliviously. Tatsuki closed her eyes and spoke with a grin. What could it be? Maybe it was your ugly mug. Naruto burst out laughing, holding onto the wall for support. Tatsuki raised a brow at him before turning back to Ichigo. By the way, why are you so late? I mean, it's time for lunch already. Naruto stopped laughing. Yeah, what's up? I had to deal with Kigo asking me where you were all morning. He said, playing dumb. Ichigo was quiet for a few seconds before speaking. Yeah, don't worry about it, I'll tell you later. They watched him walk off before turning to each other and shrugging. Naruto went after him. See you later, Tats. He said over his shoulder. The girl turned to the other direction. Yeah, later, Ruto. Hey, Ichigo, I heard a truck crashed into your house last night, dude. Said Kigo rather loudly right in Naruto's ear. Yeah, pretty much. Ichigo replied. Naruto shook his head to clear his ears before blinking, then glaring at Kigo. Wait. If you knew that, then why did you keep asking me where Ichigo was? He growled, fist raised, a vein pulsing on it. Mizuru spoke up before Naruto could get too violent and viciously beat on Kigo. He got enough pain from Ichigo as it was. So did you clean it all up yet? He asked curiously. Ichigo gave him a look. What are you kidding? It's gonna take forever. The strawberry looked up as his giant friend spoke up next to him. Do you need any help? Asked the towering Mexican teen known as Yasutoru Sato, aka Chad. Ichigo smiled awkwardly. That's okay. Kigo chuckled. Yeah, Chad, I mean, you could end up bringing the whole house down, you know. He said jokingly. Naruto chuckled before noticing a familiar girl approach them. He blinked in surprise. Hey? What's she doing here? Hey, what have we got next? Ichigo asked. Language lab. Replied Mizuru before a cheery voice sounded from Bejin Ichigo. Hello. You're Ichigo, aren't you? Ichigo turned round and his face dropped in shock. Stood behind him was none other than Rukia Kuchiki, the Shinigami that had loaned him her powers the night before. I'll be sitting next to you from now on. My name is Rukia. Naruto jumped in surprise as Ichigo stood up with a strangles cry. It's you. He said, pointing at her dramatically. Hey Ichigo, what's wrong with you? Kigo said incredulously. Do you know each other? Chad asked. Rukia smiled innocently. Of course not, we've never met before. Isn't that right, Ichigo? Rukia is a brand new transfer student. Mizuru informed a shocked Ichigo. Nice to meet ya. Kigo greeted. Naruto grinned slightly. Yo. This should be fun. Rukia extended her hand. It's a pleasure. Ichigo looked at it in confusion and gasped at what he saw. Naruto looked round discreetly and saw a message written on the girl's hand. Make a scene and you are so dead. Rukia smirked mischievously, not that anyone other than Naruto saw it. All of a sudden Ichigo grabbed her by the arm and stormed out of the classroom. Hey Ichigo, where you going? Kigo called after him, only to receive no answer. Well, he sure acts quickly, nah. Naruto said with a grin. He nudged Mizuru. Looks like you've lost any chance with her. Mizuru sweat dropped. Hey, it's not like I planned on doing anything. Besides, I'm into older women. Naruto snickered under his breath. Oh, I'm pretty sure she's your type, seeing as she's probably lived a century or two. He thought amusedly. Turning around, he caught Uryu's eye and the Quincy wasn't too happy. Muttering a see ya to the others, he approached the quiet boy at the back of the classroom. Grabbing a chair, he sat in front of his desk, fixing him with a serious look. There a problem, Uryu? The boy scoffed. No, unless you count two Shinigami being in our class as a problem. Naruto sighed. Standing up, he looked at his partner. Well, I'm not going to stop being friends with Ichigo because he's a Shinigami now. He said, causing the glasses-wearing teen to glare at him. But that doesn't mean I trust the Rukia girl. At least this way, I'll be close enough to keep an eye on her. Because I'm pretty sure that like me, Ichigo's going to need someone to help him out and another Shinigami is perfect for that. Uryu nodded thoughtfully. Indeed, Shinigami can't be trusted. He fixed Naruto with a sharp glance. Very well then, keep an eye on them. Make sure that Kurosaki isn't brainwashed by Kuchiki. The last thing we need is two Shinigami getting in our way. Naruto nodded. Yeah. I don't quite fancy fighting either of them at the moment, or ever for that matter. Turning around he waved over his shoulder. Catch you later, Uryu. Dodge. Jump. Dodge, dodge, jump. Dodge. This was the mantra in Naruto's head as he avoided attack after attack from a rather weak, to him anyway, hollow that had ambushed him on his way home. He had surprised the beast by dodging its attacks before it quickly became amused and decided to play with him for a while. It was an ugly bastard, looking like some sort of sick amalgamation of a frog and a bat, with a mane around its neck and what seemed like fur on its lips. He had been fighting it for several minutes now and he was quickly growing bored. He stared at the leech-like projectiles that had fired at him in disgust and wariness. He'd already seen what happened when the hollow vibrated its tongue and it wasn't pretty. He looked up as it laughed mockingly at him. You can dodge all you like, human. It shrieked from its position in the sky as it could fly, but I have the advantage. Well, you run around, avoiding my leech bombs. You're wasting valuable energy. Well, I'm up here, effortlessly shooting at you. It laughed again, while Naruto stared up at it in boredom. Once you're all out of energy, I'll swoop down and finish you. Once again it cackled at the young Uzumaki. And you can't do a thing about it. Naruto snickered, and the monster twitched. And what, human, is so funny? Naruto coughed into a fist before extending his arm outwards, hand dangling freely. I just think it's funny. You know, you making assumptions and all that. The green crystal on the chain around his wrist gleamed in the afternoon sun. The hollow laughed once more. Assumptions? No, it's fact. You're just a human, admittedly a fast one, but you're a human. There's no way something as weak as a human could defeat a hollow. Naruto grinned. Oh really? He pulled his arm back. How about it disprove your theory? He jabbed his hand towards the hollow and a chain flew from his sleeve, which quickly approached the hollow. It flinched in surprise. Before it could finish its word, the chain wrapped around its neck, choking it instantly. Futilely pulling at its neck, it didn't have time to react as Naruto yanked his arm hard and slammed the hollow straight down onto the street below. After the resulting dust cloud had dispersed, the hollow was revealed. A black hole had appeared next to it and it glared at him before jumping into it. I'll get you back for this, human. And with that it was gone. Naruto stared for a few seconds before scoffing. Howard, he muttered before he sensed Ichigo's fastly approaching spirit energy. With a small flash of green light, he was gone, seconds before Ichigo arrived with Rukia on his back and the two of them looked around in confusion. Hey Rukia. Ichigo said, looking at the petty Shinigami on his back. Where's this hollow supposed to be at? Rukia looked at her phone, frowning in confusion. It must have left in the Garganta, she thought, her gaze searching the area before resting on a hole in the middle of the street. No. More like it was shazzed off, but by whom? She shrieked in shock as Ichigo dumped her off his back, knocking her both out of her thoughts and onto her arse. If there's nothing here then I'm going home. The strawberry said, before walking away. Rukia glared at his retreating form as she sat on the pavement. How rude. She shouted after him before getting up and following him. Naruto watched them go from a nearby rooftop. Huh, it looks like she hasn't brainwashed Ichigo yet. He muttered sarcastically, remembering Uryu's earlier words. Man, Ichigo's low, I was fighting that guy for the last 10 minutes. He watched them disappear before he was hit in the head by a plant pot. Get off my roof you young whippersnapper you. He glared down at an old man in the garden of the house he was standing on. Oi, old timer. He yelled back, brow twitching, didn't you get the memo? It's rude to throw things at people. The old man picked up a garden gnome and with surprising strength lobbed it at Naruto, hitting him on the head. He let out a yelp and cradled his head. And it's rude to stand on people's roofs and break their garden ornaments. The old man countered, nodding with great pride at his response. Naruto gawked at him incredulously. You threw them at me. He dodged an ornamental flamingo as it stuck into the roof by the beak. He paled at the sight before glaring at the old man again. What the hell, old man? If you weren't standing on my roof then I wouldn't have thrown them. Ergo, it's your fault. Naruto was about to argue before sweat dropping as the senior citizen hefted up a huge slab from his rock garden. Deciding to cut his losses, he jumped off the roof just as the old man threw the rock. As he ran away, he heard a loud crash and a scream from the old man. My roof. It's got a hole in it. The man yelled. Damn kids these days with their standing on roofs and their Jenga and their Lady Gaga and their Streets of Rage and their TIE fighters and their dogging and their Naruto sweat dropped as he finally got out of earshot from the crazy man's ranting. Crazy old man. He muttered, nursing his throbbing head. What is it today, an inanimate object hitting me in the head? He looked up and noticed he was at his house. Huh, whatcha no, I'm home. Opening the door, he dropped his bag next to it and went upstairs to his room. Well, today was interesting. As he stepped off the last step onto the landing, he noticed too late that the alarm clock was right underneath his foot. Not having the time to react, he stepped on it and instead of crushing it, he slipped on it like a banana peel in a comedy movie. With a yell, he fell backwards and tumbled down the stairs, hitting each step as he went along. Ow. 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 Reaching the bottom, he landed flat out on his back and he groaned in pain. Sluggishly lifting his head up, he noticed the alarm clock at the top of the stairs. It was almost like it was staring down at him, mocking him with its general clockishness. He stared at it, completely freaked out. What the hell is with that alarm clock? Jumping to his feet, he ran up the stairs, picked it up and ran back downstairs. Opening the door, he threw it out and it landed on the road. And stay out. And with a mighty slam he shut the door and went upstairs to sleep. After all, taking several knocks to the head tends to make one sleepy. He never noticed a malicious aura surround the clock as a clawed hand picked it up. Cuckoo. A warped voice laughed to itself. I do love to mess with my prey. A deep intake of breath was heard before a moan echoed throughout the street. And you, boy, are the greatest prey of all. The alarm clock was crushed in the hand's grip. Soon, all that delicious spirit energy will be mine. And with a deep but slightly feminine laugh, the mysterious being disappeared in a black portal, leaving the mortal realm completely. Hey, Takuto-san, should we really be here? I mean, you have heard about this place, haven't you? A teenage boy in a black hooded top asked another hood-wearing youth. It was late at night and a small group had gathered outside of an abandoned house deep into the urban area of Karakura town. They were the Hawks, a new wanted gang that had started to form in recent months, led by Takuto Nishizono. Takuto was a 17-year-old male, wearing a red and black hoodie with downward stripes, black tracksuit bottoms, and red trainers. He sported a thin goatee and wore black sunglasses on his face, as well as a gold chain around his neck. Takuto spat before sneering at the boy who spoke, causing him to squeak in fright. Gee, course I have, who hasn't heard about the chain house, and I say it's bullshit. Evil spirits police. He laughed mockingly. I think some local idiots like you have been watching too much Ghost Bust. He said, getting laughs from the others while the first boy shrunk with embarrassment. The day boys, he started, pointing at the group before switching targets to the house. The Hawks are going to take this place and make it their headquarters. The group cheered in agreement before a dark chuckle rang out into the night. Oh really? How amusing. Takuto jumped and looked around. Sneering, he pulled a flip knife from his pocket and pointed it out in front of him. Boy, shithead. Enough with the stupid voice. He flipped out the knife and smirked and come out, so we can't talk. The rest of the Hawks either pulled out knives and knucklebusters or picked up baseball bats and got into a circle. The voice chuckled again. But talking is so overrated. I much prefer to employ the use of a creaking sound from behind, made Takuto, and the Hawks turned to face the now open door of the house. Violence. Suddenly, chains flew from inside the house, grabbed some of the Hawks and held them up in the air. The rest dropped their weapons and ran away, screaming in terror. Takuto stared in terror, knife slowly falling out of his hand as he gaped. Backing away in terror, he fell over before turning around and pushing off the ground, running away. A few seconds later, the chains threw the captured gangsters into a nearby rubbish skip before retreating back into the house. A figure appeared in the doorway, and the light from a nearby lamppost revealed its identity. Well, that was fun. Naruto said to himself before closing the door and going back inside. So then he said, hey, he's the one with the tuning fork. Kigo said with a burst of laughter, doubling over from the sheer force of his amusement. Naruto was not so amused. Kigo, that has got to be the single worst joke I have ever heard. He said with a flat expression. I've heard better ones from Christmas crackers. Mizuru nodded in agreement. Kigo stopped laughing and started crying, his arm covering his face. Ignoring him, Naruto walked over to a door and opened it, revealing the school roof. Lunch bag in hand, he walked outside before stopping as he saw Ichigo and Rukia standing near the fence. Shrugging, he and Mizuru went over to them. Suo, you're together again. Mizuru said, grabbing the two's attention. You two seem pretty chummy. Shut up, Mizuru. Come on, does it really look to you like you're chummy? Mizuru blinked. Maybe. Well, to be honest, you two do appear to be pretty close. But people are gonna talk, and if people talk enough, everyone will think you're an item. Naruto scoffed. Nah, Ichigo's as asexual as a pot plant, nobody's gonna think that. He said, earning him a glare for Ichigo. Whatever, he muttered, if I really cared about what people think, then I would have dyed my hair black a long time ago. Yeah, that's true. Mizuru relented. Smirking, Naruto moved his gaze over to Rukia, who was staring at a straw quite intently. So this is the straw. It's short, but now I have to know, where do I poke it? Naruto snickered. Isn't that usually a guy problem? He joked, causing Ichigo to choke on his drink. Chuckling slightly, Mizuru turned to the short girl. Hi there, how you doing? Turning to face him, Rukia suddenly smiled. Why, hello there. She said sweetly, and Naruto's sweat dropped, he could practically see sparkles around her. You're, Mizuru? Said boy chuckled. That's me. I guess we haven't been properly introduced. I'm Mizuru Kojima, I really like picking up chicks. Ichigo finished for him, causing the boy to cry out. Ichigo, now that's not cool. Ichigo looked at Rukia. Watch it, he may look like a dork, but he's a real player. Seriously. Cut it out. You'll permanently damage my reputation. Naruto grinned and wrapped an arm around Mizuru's shoulder. And break what's already broken. He said, before releasing his friend and grinning at Rukia. Yo. Name's Naruto Uzumaki, best bud to Strawberry over here. Ichigo glared at him. Shut it, fish cake. Naruto growled, and they started to butt foreheads. It means Maelstrom, damn it. Lightning flashed between their eyes as they pushed against each other. A loud voice brought them out of their glare battle. What's this? The hot new transfer student Rukia Kuchiki with you guys. How did that happen? The three looked at each other before Mizuru pointed to Ichigo. Ichigo picked her up. He's the one who brought her here. Huh. Ichigo yelled, I did not. Ichigo did. What a guy. Kigo was suddenly in his face, crying manly tears. Good job. Ichigo just stared, freaked the hell out. Well, I guess it's really no big deal. Moving from Ichigo, Kigo went over to Rukia and saluted, grabbing the short girl's attention. Greetings. I'm Kigo Asano, welcome lovely lady to this garden of manliness. Rukia leaned away from him. She sweat dropped as Kigo threw his arms into the air and started going left and right. Yeah. Let's party. Right here, right now. Some party, noodles and juice. Shut up, it's the feeling that counts. Rukia, if you find yourself needing anything, just come see me. I'm here for you. Rukia smiled before thrusting her juice box out. Great, open this. She said with a dazzling smile. No prob, your wish is my command, huh? Bumping into something, Kigo turned around to see Chad towering over him. Hey Chad. Yo holy crap, what happened to you? Naruto asked. The tall Mexican teen had some bandages on his hand and face. Yeah Chad, what's with the bandages? Ichigo asked. Whoa. You got hurt. Kigo brilliantly deduced. Wow, what happened to you? I had a mishap, a steel beam fell on my head. Naruto stared at him with wide eyes. A steel beam? No way, for real? Kigo was also looking at him wide-eyed. My hand got hurt when a motorcycle ran into me. The rider that hit me got banged up pretty bad, the force of the collision threw him off and he was knocked out. So I picked the guy up and carried him to the hospital. Well, no wonder you were late to school. The only thing I wonder about is what exactly is your body made of? Not saying anything further, Chad placed a cage on the floor, which held a bird inside it. Hey, so where did you get that bird? Kigo asked him. My name's Yuchi Sabata, it's nice to meet you. Naruto's eyes widened slightly as he sensed something from the bird, and in the corner of his eye, he noticed that Ichigo and Rukia seemed to have sensed it also. What's your name? Kigo bent over the cage and stuck his finger inside. That is amazing. I mean the way this bird can talk is phenomenal. My name's Kigo Asano, Kigu Asanu, can you say that? So Chad Ichigo started just where did you get this bird? Naruto looked at him as well, also interested in the answer. Someone. Gave me him. Who it? Kigo shouted. There you go again, getting lazy and cutting your story short. That's a bad habit, Chad. Now explain. That was the whole story. There you go, just like you usually do. Naruto drowned him out as he stared at the bird, wondering what it was he sensed from it. Rukia's voice grabbed his attention. Don't worry. She said, loud enough for just Ichigo to hear, or so she thought. You're right, there is something inside that bird, but I don't think it's evil. It's probably just a lonely soul. You know, one that didn't have many friends. But we can't leave it, or it might become a hollow. Tonight, we need to perform a konso. Naruto frowned. A what? Just great, just what I need, another sleepless night. It doesn't help to complain. Looking back at the bird, Naruto narrowed his gaze. Why is there something familiar about this bird? Walking away, he ignored Kigo asking where he was going and left the rooftop. Whatever, it's not something I need to get myself involved in. Hey Naruto. Naruto turned around to see Ichigo running at him, looking somewhat frantic. Naruto raised a brow and grinned at his friend. Man Ichigo, I know we haven't seen each other since yesterday, but no need to be so excited to see me. However, he frowned when he saw the look on the strawberry's face. What's up? He asked. Have you seen Chad? Ichigo asked, and Naruto looked up and thought. Can't say I have. Why, you need something off him. Ichigo just growled and took off in another direction. What's his problem? A voice from behind him made him jump. It would seem that Sato was injured during a hollow attack last night. Turning around he saw Ryu standing behind him, his hand holding his glasses up. Naruto's eyes widened at this news. What? He yelled, feeling worry for his tall friend. Why didn't I notice? Ryu raised a brow at the blonde. Really? I wonder why, he said dryly. Flashback. Hey Ryu. How many inches is this? 34. So I would appreciate it if you didn't touch it. Ooh. Silence. Hey, how do I turn it on? I said don't to, no, not that. Ah. Flashback end. You still owe me 55,000 yen for that television you broke. The Quincy said with a glare. Naruto's sweat dropped before shaking his head. That's not important right now. I need to find Chad. Running off he left the Quincy standing in his proverbial dust cloud. Damn it. He thought, gritting his teeth as he ran in the direction Ichigo went off to. Chad. As he ran he reminisced about his tall friend. We met a few years ago at Mishiba Junior High School. I was completely antisocial, ignoring everyone around me. I started to get into fights because it was all I could do to express my anger at the mother who left me all alone, but also thanks to my odd hair color. That's when I met Ichigo and Chad. I'd heard rumors about an orange-haired delinquent who'd always get into fights, and I wanted a piece of that. Flashback. So, the rumors were true, you do have orange hair. The orange-haired teen turned around to see a blonde-haired teenager behind him, with a beepy grin on his face. Ichigo looked at him with bored eyes, face set in a scowl. Yeah? What's it to ya, blondie? Naruto's grin grew, becoming slightly vicious. Well, I've heard that you're pretty good at fighting, and I want to see if that rumor's true as well. He smirked as he raised a fist before charging at Ichigo. The strawberry just sighed before punching outwards, expecting the blonde to get knocked out instantly. He was, however, surprised when the boy knocked away his hand and punched him in the stomach, causing him to double over. As saliva flew from his mouth, he growled before grabbing a two-handed smash aimed at his head and slamming his other arm down on the blonde's head. Letting out a cry of pain, he stumbled backwards, only to hit a wall. Staggering, he prepared to attack before the wall grabbed his hand and he looked up to see a tall, dark-skinned and haired teen towering over him. Growling, he struck out and hit Chad in the stomach, actually managing to wind him ever so slightly. The shock from this caused him to let go of the blonde's hand, and Naruto followed it up with a strike to the giant solar plexus. Chad stumbled away slightly, and Naruto was tackled away from him by Ichigo. This time, Naruto hit a real wall, and Ichigo held him against it, and they growled before looking into each other's eyes. They gasped as they recognized a look in the other's eyes, the look of losing a parent. Pushing the ginger away, Naruto coughed slightly before muttering an apology and walking away. Ichigo watched him go before looking at Chad. The two nodded before following after the blonde. Flashback end. After that, we all slowly became friends. We all had something in common, the loss of loved ones, being ostracized for being different, and Ichigo and I had a mutual friend in Tatsuki who went to the same dojo I did. They extended their pact of friendship to include me, and we all helped each other against any thugs who felt like messing with us. Running down the street, he tried to sense either Chad's or Ichigo's spirit energy. They were my salvation, my friends, and I won't let anything happen to either of them. That's a promise of a lifetime. His eyes widened as he felt Ichigo's energy flare, and he felt 3 more signatures, Rukia's, Chad's and. His eyes narrowed into a glare as he sensed a familiar energy. It was the same energy he felt on the bipedal, and also the same he felt a few days ago. So, that bastard's back, is he? And with a flash of green light, he disappeared from sight. Looking down from his position in the sky, he noticed Ichigo run away from several explosions before cutting up little creatures. From their bisected bodies, leeches just like the ones that hollow spat at him. He looked at the ugly hollow as it spoke to Ichigo. Ha ha ha. Pretty good moves for a substitute, aren't you forgetting something? The leeches spilling from their guts are still live ammunition. It opened its mouth and extended its tongue, and Naruto jumped into action. Quickly whipping out his chain, he threw it and it wrapped around the hollow's tongue, and Ichigo's eyes widened in surprise as the hollow was slammed into the wall next to it. Graw. It screamed as it pulled itself out of the rubble. Before Ichigo looked up at the source of the retreating chains, Naruto activated one of his abilities, Shimmering Crystal Illusion, which hid him from sight. You. Where are you, human? Come over here so I can get my revenge for last time. Shaking off his surprise, Ichigo leaped at the distracted hollow and struck it in the mask. Tell me, Ichigo growled, before I slice and dice you. You killed the mother of the boy inside the bipedal, didn't you? Naruto's eyes widened in shock as he listened from a nearby rooftop. You might as well admit it, because either way, you're going down. Rukia's eyes widened before she turned to the bipedal behind here. Naruto blinked, he hadn't noticed them or Chad standing there. Is this true? She asked the bird. The bird looked down in shame. I'm afraid it's all my fault. I just wanted to bring my mother back to life. Naruto's eyes widened again as he stared at the bird boy. Mother back to life? He thought, is that even possible? The bird carried on. I didn't mean for those people to get hurt. If I'd known about that, then I never would have done it. All I wanted was just to see my mother again. It said sadly, and Naruto felt a wave of pity and understanding towards the kid. I'm sorry. Wait. Rukia interrupted softly. So you really accepted something such a lie? That if you did what he said that he'd bring your mother back to life? She asked with a horrified expression. How could you believe that? Because he wanted to believe it. The hollow said, and Naruto snapped his head towards it, eyes wild with rage. Bastard. Ichigo aptly called it. Yes. I killed the brat's mother back when I was still alive. You might have heard about me, I was all over the TV, the radio, everywhere. I was a famous serial killer, they never would have caught me either, I was too smart. I'd still be out there hunting today, but as it turned out the kid's mother was my last score. Naruto's fists clenched, shaking violently as the monster spoke. She was a sweet one, I stabbed her 8 times and she ran. Bleeding and bleeding, and when she couldn't run anymore she still tried to protect the kid. I really got off on it. And that's when everything went sour. I chased her onto the balcony and finished her off. Then that stupid kid grabbed my shoelaces. I lost my balance and went over the railing, 20 stories down. Who'd have thought that I'd get knocked off by a snot-nosed kid? Suddenly I was dead, I was pissed, and I wanted payback. The punk kid was still alive, so I sucked out his soul and stuck it in the stupid bipedal. Then I made him a deal. It held out 3 fingers in front of its sick grin. I told him if he could run from me in that bird body for 3 months, I'd bring his precious mommy back to life. Naruto grit his teeth as his whole body began to shake, eyes set into a hateful glare. How could you do that? Ichigo asked, ever so slightly hopeful, and Naruto listened, with the same hope, if not more intense. I couldn't, you moron. Bring a dead person back to life. Nothing. Nobody could have brought her back to life after what I did to her. I just said it to get the brat to play along. And it worked like a charm too. He runs from me and I get the thrill of the chase. Not only that, but there's the added pleasure of slaughtering everyone who tries to help him. And every time he sequels and begs me don't hurt them and he wants to quit our little game, that's when I use my clincher. Mommy's waiting for you to save her. What a laugh. Ichigo's eyes widen and he holds his sword tightly as he too starts to shake in rage. But it always works. And he's off running again. Mama. Mama. Jai ha 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 ha. It cackles with sick glee before grabbing Ichigo's sword. But enough about me. It jumps into the air. Now it's time to kill you. It spits out more leeches. Your defense is weak, Shinigami. Before it could vibrate its tongue and before Naruto could release his wrath upon the frog bat bastard, Ichigo squishes onto the leeches and charged with a roar. Pulling back his fist with a leech grasped in it, he smashed through the hollow's teeth and held his hand in its mouth. Here, take your bomb back. The substitute Shinigami growled. What's wrong? He asked with a vicious grin. Aren't you going to detonate it now? Go ahead. Just do that thing you do with your tongue. The hollow stared at him in sheer terror. If you're not going to use it, I might as well take it from you. And with a hard yank, he ripped the end of the hollow's tongue off and jumped away. ARRGH, my town. Go you son of a grahh. With a yell, Ichigo charged and slashed the hollow straight through its ugly mug and it screamed as energy exploded from the cut. Suddenly, giant gates with skeleton torsos on them emerged from the ground behind it. Ichigo and Naruto from afar stared at it in shock, but Rukia calmly spoke up. Calm down, they're the gates of hell. But they're opening only for him. The gates opened as much as they could with chains keeping them closed before they snapped off. The Zanpakuto can only was away sins the soul has committed as a hollow. Those who commit terrible crimes while alive go to hell. The gates were now wide open and fire raged behind the still screaming hollow. Its mask began to crumble away before a gigantic sword pierced its body before the gate slowly closed, causing the silhouetted figure of the impaled monster to disappear. After they closed, they began to shake before exploding into thousands of pieces. So that's hell, Ichigo muttered. The sun began to set as Rukia went over to the bird and Ichigo followed her, Naruto also following, still upholding his illusion. After staring at the bird for a while, Ichigo spoke up. What's wrong? I'm afraid there's nothing I can do. She set her hand on the cage. His chain of fate has been severed. There's no sign of it. Without it there's no way I could return him to his body. Oh no. The bird said. Uchi? Chad muttered. Rukia quickly spoke to comfort the boy. Don't be sad, the Soul Society is a wonderful place that's very peaceful. You'll be happy there. You'll never be hungry and you'll never grow old. In fact it's a much better place to live than this world. Ichigo leaned over her shoulder, a flat expression on his face. Now you're suddenly an expert on this world. He said dryly. Woo? Anyway, you're missing the point here. When you pass over you'll finally be reunited with your mother. The bird gasped and Naruto barely stopped himself from doing the same, lest he blow his cover. Maybe we can't bring her back to life, but she is on the other side, waiting for you. And this time, it's really true. Naruto quickly left before he could make a sound. He flashed away to a nearby rooftop, one that looked like it had been repaired recently. The other side. He muttered to himself, will she be there? Who looked down, before his face hardened into a glare. Even if she is, why should I care? She's probably having a grand old time, while I'm all alone. He growled, clenching his fist. She left me to fend for myself, with no one to care for me, I had to raise myself. He unclenched his fist. She can stay there, for all I care. He said, voice tight with emotion, as a tear slid down without him noticing. Before he could slip hand deeper, a loud voice rang out. Get off my roof. Quickly, he ran away seconds before a pitchfork and a postbox landed where he was standing. My roof. Arriving back home, he went to bed and stared at the ceiling as a beautiful woman with long red hair appeared in his mind's eye. With a scoff, he rolled over and went to sleep. Whatever. He whispered before falling into the Sandman's embrace. The man sat in a dark room, waving a fan before his face, considering what he knew about his fellow blonde, or rather what he didn't know. From what he could tell, the team could use spirit energy through a bracelet it seemed, and that was it. When the boy disappeared that night, he sensed him pulling on something in the air to accelerate his speed. That was intriguing, as it used outside energy instead of internal spirit energy like the flash step. The scientist inside him was hooked. This was an unexplained phenomena, and he had the chance to discover its secrets. Such opportunities did not come about often. Snapping the fan closed, he grinned. Perhaps it was time for a little field experiment. Rock, paper, scissors. I win. Pay up, Naruto. Yeah, here. I hope you choke on it. Good morning. Teehee. Hi everyone, how are you? Naruto, Kigo, Mizuru and Ichigo looked up as Rukia entered the classroom. Kigo was grasping a packet of chewing gum he had just won from Naruto, looking way too pleased with himself. Oh, hey, good morning Rukia. Mizuru greeted. Naruto grunted a hello as he pulled out another pack of gum and popped one in. Looking as lovely as always Rukia, Kigo said with a blush. This isn't like you, it's already third period. Mizuru commented. Rukia just giggled. Sorry. Something came up. By the way Ichigo, may I steal you for a second? What do you want? If you want to talk then just do it here Jayak. Ichigo suddenly collapsed. Oh Ichigo. What just happened? Everyone watched with a sweat drop as Rukia dragged him out of the room. I better get you to the nurse's office. She, just hit him, didn't she? Mizuru said with a grin. I didn't see a thing. Kigo replied, a stupid grin on his face. Naruto just chewed his gum with a raised brow. Wonder what she wants from him this time? He shrugged. Whatever it is, I want nothing to do with it. It's nothing spiritual anyway, I'd have felt it by now. A while later the lunch bell rang and Urahara, as spirited as always, leapt up with a cheerful yell. Alright. It's lunch. The bubbly girl jumped up with her arms raised. Please calm down Orihime, it's just lunch. Totsuki said exasperatedly. Yeah? Lunch. It's ramen day. Naruto cried, mirroring Orihime's pose. Totsuki sweat dropped. It's not a big deal she said. Naruto and Orihime were suddenly side by side, frowning at her. How can you say that Totsuki? Orihime asked, shaking her finger at her friend. Everyone knows that a healthy red-blooded high school girl comes to school for only one reason. To eat her lunch. She finished with a bent-over pose. Naruto kneeled on one knee next to her, looking up her skirt. Yes, quite. He said in a sagely voice, his forefinger and thumb holding his chin, with his other hand resting on his elbow. Growling, Totsuki punched Naruto in the head, sending him crashing into the ground. Ouch. Turning his head, he looked back up. Well, this is even better. Before getting booted in the temple, sending him into the wall. Ochi mumbled, face stuck in the wall. Totsuki twitched before turning back to the oblivious Orihime. Yeah, I get it. Let's see it already. Naruto tuned out the food talk as he pried his face from the plaster of the wall. Picking a piece out of his check, he noticed it come away with blood on it. Geez Totsuki, give guy a break huh? He mumbled, annoyed. Pushing his nose back into shape, he noticed Uryu had left the room. Where does he even go for lunch? Orihime, why don't you and I eat together? Naruto's ears twitched at the familiar voice. Turning around, he had a grin on his face. This should be good. Standing there with a pink lunch wrap was Yuzuru Honsho, Karakura High's resident lesbian. She and Naruto got on well, for obvious reasons, really. Sure. Orihime said happily. Suddenly, Chizuru hugged the orange-haired scatterbrain. That's so cute. You take a bite of bread and smile with crumbs all over your mouth. Naruto just sat back and watched. Heh, shame she's a lesbian, she'd be perfect for me. Wait, why aren't I eating ramen right now? And with that thought in mind he left, making his way to the canteen. Are you going to help him? Looking up from his 8 bowl of ramen, he saw Uryu sitting in the seat opposite him. Naruto shrugged before picking up another bowl. Nah, he's got this. Nothing he can't handle. Uryu smirked. Truly your progress is stunning. 6 months since you unlocked your powers, yet you can judge the outcome of a battle simply by the combatant spirit energy. Not really. Naruto shrugged, putting down his bowl. It's just that if he can't handle such a weak-ass hollow then I'd be really disappointed. Uryu's sweat dropped. Right, the Quincy pushed up his glasses. Well, it seems that he's finished. And rather quickly I might add. Well, I suppose it was a weak-ass hollow as you so aptly put it. Naruto narrowed his eyes as he sensed some extra presences. It's that guy, from that night. Standing up, he walked off. Hey, Uryu, cover for me in class A. Watching the Namikaze walk away, the black-haired teen raised a brow. Fine. But I better get an explanation as for why later. Yeah. Naruto called back, waving his hand dismissively. Uryu shook his head. Ahem. Turning around slowly, Uryu saw one of the cleaning ladies standing behind him. I hope you're going to clear this away. Looking at the table, his eyes bulged from beneath his glasses. On the table was 20 empty bowls, covered in broth. When the hell did he? Damn it Naruto. Jeez. I got all excited for a fight, and all for nothing. But Jinta, it's good that we didn't have to fight. Shut it Uryu. This is all your fault anyway. Ow. Stop it Jinta. Isuke ignored the squabbling of his free underage volunteers, as he sensed a not-so-discreet presence from afar. It seems the mystery boy recognized me. A grin crossed his face, his eyes glinting in the shadow of his hat. This could be a good opportunity for some testing. Sensing the boy draw closer, Isuke blurted away in a burst of speed, catching Naruto off guard. Well, where'd he go? He thought with wide eyes, before he felt a presence appear behind him. Lashing out backwards, his hand met air, confusing him. Feeling it behind him once again, he extended his chain and threw it behind him. The chain pierced the air, going taut as it was caught by the hat-wearing man. He had caught it as it tried to skewer his head, but Isuke had simply moved his head and grabbed the chain. Interesting, I can feel your spirit energy throughout this chain. Naruto growled, before smirking. Feeling a pulse go through the chain, Isuke was unsurprised to hear a chink noise, before he ducked, dodging the chain once again. However, he let go of the chain, feeling it burn him. Dashing a couple of dozen meters away, he looked at his palm, seeing chain-shaped burns upon it. Friction burn could cause some slight discomfort, but not much else. Of course, the fact that he managed to wound me at all is impressive. Feeling the wind in his hair, he noticed that his hat was gone. Looking back at Naruto, he noticed the chain moving around in the air like a snake in water, and skewered on the crystal on the end was his hat. Yeesh, that was my favorite hat. I only have so many of those you know. Naruto narrowed his eyes at the man's casualness. Raising his hand up, he whipped the chain towards his foe in a stabbing motion. This caused the chain to shoot towards Isuke at high speeds. Kisuke flew backwards, watching the chain come closer and closer before stopping entirely, going completely taut. Kisuke flicked the chain, hearing a ringing noise as a result of the action. Quickly grabbing the chain so Naruto couldn't recall it, he pulled out his cane and slammed it down on the chain. The chain immediately broke apart, falling apart at the links. Naruto's eyes widened in shock as his weapon fell to the ground. Kisuke hummed. Just as I thought, not only does your chain have a reach limit, but there is actually some science behind your ability. Correct me if I'm wrong, but do you perhaps manipulate the chain's very atoms in order to make it extend? Naruto's eyes widened further as Kisuke explained his ability. Yes, with your spirit energy using the crystal as a medium, you push the unnecessary atoms up and down along the chain in order to create new chain links, thus increasing the chain's length. Great for quick and deadly attacks, but not so much if your opponent is faster than you. Plus, the structural integrity of the chain is greatly compromised by this, making it easy to break. Who are you? Naruto asked, amazed at the ease with which the man figured out his ability and weakness. Kisuke smiled and hid his face behind a fan. Oh, I'm just a simple candy shop owner. Naruto growled, clutching the remains of his weapon. Well, if you aren't going to answer me voluntarily, I'll have to force it out of you. Pushing off from the air, he flew at the man at decent speeds. However, having seen and fought much faster people in his time, Kisuke easily dodged his charge. However, his eyes widened as he felt several small energy readings from behind him. Turning, he barely dodged dozens of objects, spinning at high speeds. He watched in fascination as the object span around Naruto before flying up his sleeve. After a few seconds, the chain fell out, back in peak condition. If ranged attacks won't work, the boy grit out, holding the chain out before him, I'll have to bring the fight to you. The chain grew to about 2 feet in length before stiffening into a crude chain sword. With a roar, Naruto swung at Kisuke, who easily blocked it with his cane. Naruto growled at this before smirking. The chain suddenly became lucid and wrapped around the cane, extending as it did so. Within seconds the whole thing was wrapped in chains. As Kisuke looked on with wide eyes, he barely caught sight of Naruto's fist coming at him. His face, on the other hand, caught it completely. Naruto grinned as his fist made contact, but grew confused as he didn't feel anything give way. Looking past his fist, he gasped as he saw Kisuke looking at him lazily. Was that supposed to do something? And as Naruto felt a pain in the back of his head, unconsciousness drawing in, he idly wondered if this was how often Totsuki felt. Naruto slumped over before being caught in large arms. Are you okay, Mr. Urahara? Kisuke waved a hand in a dismissive gesture. I'm fine. The kid's got a decent punch, but nothing painful. Now, let's take him back to the shop, I want to talk with him in a peaceful setting. Tessai nodded before the two went back to Jinta and Ururu before going back to their shop. You know, this wasn't exactly how I pictured getting to study him. When your whole world revolves around someone, you start to notice things. Small, subtle things that most would miss unless they knew them as well as you did. The way their smile is ever so slightly sad when she looks at you. The way she sighed when she looked at the ring on her finger. The glimmer of tears in her eyes on certain days of the year when her emotions reach breaking point. At 7 years old, Naruto's world revolved around his mother. How couldn't it when he had no father as a role model to look up to? No siblings to protect or be protected by. No friends to grab away his attention. To him, his mother was the most important person in the world. And it killed him when she was sad. She hid it well, but from her devoted son, she could hide nothing. Some might say he was too dependent on his mother. Well, he would tell them to get lost. The unwavering devotion he had for her made him see her pain, for he had seen her love, and the two were nothing alike. He also noticed how on 2 days of the year, she would act differently. Both had a build-up period as well. One day of the year, she would fiddle with her ring, constantly, almost as if it was burning her. And in the week before it, she would be distracted. She would watch other couples with longing, and those boring romance dramas would be a constant on the TV. And on the other day, she would dote on him even more than usual, barely leaving his side for almost any reason. And, in the few days before it, she would be jumpy, looking around every corner, scared of her own shadow. Even at his young age he knew something was wrong. It would only be later in his life would he realize the significance of those 2 days. His parents' wedding anniversary. And the anniversary of his father's death. So, at the age of 7, he decided to try and do something about her sadness. He noticed on their trips into the market area that his mother would look at jewelry stalls before moving on to the essentials. So, one day he snuck out with all the money he had saved up from his allowance over the last 5 months and headed straight for the market stall. And with his meager savings, he bought the best damn necklace that he could afford. A chain necklace with a green crystal and 2 small metal balls. And, on the day of the ring fiddling, he presented her with the necklace. He watched in glee as her eyes shined at his gift and he grinned as he kissed him in the cheek and dragged him in for a hug. "Thank you so much, Neri-chan." With a smile, he smuggled into her warmth. "Thank you so much for killing me." He froze as her body stiffened before shooting up and out of his embrace. Shakily looking up, he saw his mother hanging from a light fixture, her soulless dead eyes bearing into his own. AHHH. Naruto shot up, clutching his chest as he stared forward with wide eyes, panting heavily. Looking down at his hand, he noticed with a start that his crystal was gone. Looking for this? He span around to see the hat-wearing man standing in a doorway, swinging his necklace around on his finger. Naruto clenched his fist, ready to jump at him, but the man shook his finger. Remember what happened last time? And that was with your weapon. Face it, kid, without this thing, you can't really do much. Naruto just glared at the hat-clad man before growling and unclenching his fist. "Ah, good, you've calmed down. So tell me, what is this?" "It's an AK-47. He said with a deadpan before rolling his eyes. "Obviously it's a necklace." "Ah, but it's no ordinary necklace, is it? Tell me, where did you get it?" the man said, an inquisitive look in his shadowed eyes. Naruto narrowed his eyes. "Why should I tell you anything? You knocked me out and kidnapped me, heck I don't even know your name." As he spoke, he took a look at his surroundings. He was in a rather dingy-looking room with a window and a door. Since the prat in the hat was blocking the doorway, the window was his only escape route. "Of course, how rude of me. My name is Kisuke Urahara and I'm just a simple candy shop owner," Kisuke said with a smile. Naruto snorted. "Bull. No simple candy shop owner could beat me." Kisuke grinned in amusement. "Pretty arrogant, aren't you?" "Not really. So, can I have my necklace back?" Cuss really, he wasn't getting it back unless Kisuke wanted to give it back to him. Naruto may be considered dumb or stupid by some, but he wasn't a complete tool. If the man didn't so much as budge from a full-powered punch to the face, then there wasn't much he could do to make him give it back. Kisuke grinned, like the cat that caught the canary, then got 3 wishes from said canary, and then wished for infinite wishes from the small yellow avian. "Sure, if you can answer a few questions." "Fine, as long as you answer some of my questions." Kisuke's grin grew again. "A condition for a condition. Keep this up and we'll be here all day. However, since I'm feeling rather generous, I'll agree to your terms without giving any more of my own." Kisuke hadn't been this amused by someone since Isshin Kurosaki. Kid's got balls, I'll give him that. Naruto nodded, proud of his negotiating ability. "Good job, Uryu told me what to do in situations like this." On second thought, maybe he was a bit stupid. "Right, why did you attack me?" It was you who attacked me. All I did was approach you." Naruto's brow twitched. "Okay, fair enough I suppose. Fine, why did you bring me back here?" "Well, your ability is quite interesting, I've never seen anything quite like it. So I wish to study it." Naruto narrowed his eyes. "Okay, last question, are you going to force me to stay, or is this optional?" Kisuke put a hand on his chin. "Well, I am really interested in your ability, but I will let you go as long as you answer my questions." Naruto nodded and Kisuke grinned. "Okay, when did you awaken your power? And how?" Naruto looked out the window as he pondered the question. "Well, it was 6 months ago now." Flashback. Naruto whistled as made his way back from the karate dojo. Normally he and Tatsuki walked home together, but it was her turn to help their sensei clean up the dojo, so he walked alone. As he walked, he noticed that it was beginning to rain, so he took a quick shortcut through a back alley. He shivered as a cold wind blew down the back of his neck and he quickened his pace. He suddenly stopped still as a pain unlike anything he had ever felt tore through his shoulder and he let out a cry as he collapsed to one knee. Clutching his shoulder, he was shocked to see blood spilling from in between his fingers. "What the fuck?" he whispered, his voice raw as pain and confusion. Hearing a faint whooshing sound, he instinctively dodged to the left and a large chunk was taken out of the alley wall. "What the fuck, what the fuck, what the fuck?" he chanted, whipping his head around, trying to see what was happening. Slowly, a faint shape began to appear before his eyes, a large blurry figure. The blur moved and once again he dodged out of the way. "You're quick for a human." A deep voice rumbled and Naruto's eyes widened in fear. "Let's see how long you can keep it up for." The blur then began moving towards him and all he could do was stare. "Nuo?" he screamed and the blur laughed mockingly. Suddenly, the necklace around his neck rose up and shot forward. It hit the blur, eliciting a scream from it. Naruto stared at the chain with wide eyes before the blur began to take form. Slowly, it changed into a hideous monster that looked like a mix between a bull and an eagle. Its face was a white mask and its eyes were wide as they went cross-eyed to look at the chain piercing its forehead. The monster screamed in pain as a red glow emerged from the hole in its head and the monster disintegrated into a white, dust-like substance. The substance then all rushed into the crystal on the end of the chain before the chain retracted back to its original form. Naruto stared forward with wide eyes before looking down at the chain lying on his chest. What the fuck was that? That was a hollow. And somehow, you killed it. A voice said from above. Looking up, he saw a familiar-looking teen standing on the roof. Ishida. Flashback end. Of course, Naruto didn't tell him that last bit. Kisuke looked thoughtful as he stared at the necklace in his hand. I see. So during a hollow attack, your powers activated out of your sheer will to survive. Interesting. He looked back at Naruto. What is so special about this necklace? Where did you get it? Naruto looked down. I bought it when I was child at the Karakura weekend market. It was a gift from my mother. Kisuke raised a brow. Was? Naruto growled. Look, you've asked your questions, so give me my necklace and let me go. Kisuke looked him in the eyes for a while before shrugging. Alright, I suppose we did have a deal. Here, catch. Kisuke threw the necklace and Naruto grabbed it in midair. He stood up and walked to the door. Hang on a minute. Naruto turned around with narrowed eyes. Hey now, don't look at me like that, I just want to make you an offer. How about I give you some training? I'm sure I could help you figure out more of your powers. Naruto smirked and turned back to the doorway. Yeah, so you can study them? No thanks. He left the room and put his hand on another door. I may be a fool, but I'm not an idiot. And with that, he opened the door and walked in. Kisuke watched the door close with a deadpan. He says as he walks into the closet. A few seconds later Naruto came out with a sheepish look on his face. Mind showing me where the front door is? Naruto walked down the street and was amazed at the time. Damn, it's getting dark. How long was I out for? Also, where the hell am I? He stopped as he sensed a powerful spirit energy fastly approaching. What the I've never felt anything like this before. He looked about frantically before his instincts told him to jump into the air. Seconds after he did so, a large explosion rocked the street and a large smoking crater was left in the ground. His instincts flared up again and in a flash of green light he shot to the left, narrowly avoiding a slash to the chest. Regaining his bearings, he stared at the creature before him. It was obviously a hollow, but it looked like no hollow Naruto had ever seen. It looked like a giant boa constrictor with long, scraggly green hair spilling from behind its white head plates. What stood out most was the two slender arms a few meters below its head. They were pure white like the rest of its body ending in clawed hands. On its chest was a black pattern which Naruto couldn't help but notice made it look rather feminine. It laughed in a warped but distinctly female voice, providing further evidence of its gender. Cuckoo, nice reflexes you have there boy. I'm impressed, not many could dodge my attacks. It leered at him, somehow giving a smirk despite its somewhat limited features. Naruto gulped as he sensed its power. There's no way I can beat this thing. Its power is overwhelming. What are you? He asked, trying to buy some time. You aren't like any hollow I've seen before. The hollow laughed again. Ha, I'd imagine I would look somewhat different to those snacks you're used to fighting. It boasted after all, I am on a much higher level than any of those weaklings. A forked tongue flicked out of its mouth before retreating back in. Your power is far greater than that Shinigami who's been running around and swinging his sword like a monkey. Even that Quincy can't hold a torch to your power. I picked a good prey. It moaned sensually, weirding Naruto out a bit. There's no greater thrill than following your prey, letting your hunger build while you keep yourself just far away enough to struggle to contain your hunger. It makes the kill all the more satisfying. Naruto stiffened. Wait, you mean you've been stalking me? For how long? The hollow licked its lips. For a couple of months now, I must say your reactions to certain things are quite amusing. Like that clock for instance, it was funny watching you freak out like that. Wait, that was you? Naruto was scared now. Not only due to the fact that a powerful hollow had been following him and messing with him, but also that he hadn't sensed it doing so. Hollows are unable to hide their spirit energy. This is no ordinary hollow head, as if that wasn't obvious already. Its eyes narrowed as it stared at his face. You know, I've only just noticed, but you look rather familiar. It tapped its chin in thought and Naruto's eyes narrowed. There. With a yell, he shot his chain at the hollow, capitalizing on its lapse in concentration. Casually, it caught the chain in its free hand, the other continuing to tap its chin. Naruto growled. Damn it. That's twice in one day that's happened. His grip tightened on the chain and he instinctively sent a wave of spirit energy through it. Suddenly, spikes emerged from the chain and dug into the hollow's hand. It let out a cry of shock, not expecting anything to actually pierce its skin. Surprised at what he just did, Naruto didn't waste any time to command the chain to wrap around the hollow's arm. The spike chain completely covered the wide appendage and the hollow watched with interest as Naruto tugged on the arm as hard as he could. After about half a minute of tugging, the hollow screamed in pain as its limb was ripped out of the socket. Its eyes were wide with shock, caught off guard twice in the space of a minute. The limb dropped to the ground before it was absorbed by the crystal. Naruto recalled the chain and kept his gaze in his opponent. Impressive. It purred, staring at its bloody side. I never would have thought you'd have the strength to pull that off. Ha, get it? Pull it off. The hollow laughed hysterically and Naruto's sweat dropped. Suddenly, its laughter stopped and blood spurted out of the hole in its body. Naruto stared with wide eyes as the blood formed together to create a new limb. It flexed its new arm before dropping it to its side. You are incredible. Never have I been this excited to eat. It flew forward in a burst of speed and Naruto was caught off guard as a fist slammed into his stomach. His body bent forward before he was propelled down into the street. He landed with a crash and his body formed a crater. His entire being flared with pain as he gasped for breath. The hollow slithered around the crater and it sked. Is that all? After you showed so much promise, this is all you can offer me? How disappointing. It sighed before looming over him. Oh well, I was getting hungry anyway. Naruto glared at it defiantly and it blinked before awing in remembrance. Of course. Now I remember. That look on your face, it's just like his. Naruto frowned in confusion and it grinned viciously. Yes, I remember now. It was 15 years ago, in this very city. I was still a lower-ranked morsel when I saw him. There was something about him that just screamed delicious. In my youthful impatience, I attacked him, desperate to feed on him. He quickly pushed a pregnant woman out of the way and before my teeth sank into his sweat flesh, he had that exact look you had earlier. In fact, the two of you look startlingly similar. The hair, the eyes, you could be the same person. Naruto froze. Hair eyes? Flashback. What did daddy look like, mommy? A young Naruto asked his mother. She froze before turning to him with sad smile. Well, she said, kneeling down before her son, he looked a lot like you actually. You got your hair and eyes from him. She smiled before grabbing his cheeks. Though you have your mommy's face. She cooed as she pulled his cheeks. Ah. Mommy, stop it. Flashback end. A tear slipped down his face as the realization hit him. This hollow the monster was the reason behind all his suffering. His fist clenched as anger flooded his body. The hollow smirked. What's wrong, was he someone you knew? Naruto whispered something and it leaned in closer only to receive the punch to the jaw that sent it flying. As it righted itself in midair, Naruto climbed to his feet. I said, you oversized draft excluder, that no, I didn't. Thanks to you, I never got the chance to. He grit his teeth hard and his eyes bored into the hollow's own. His anger moving him, he raised his hand up in the monster's direction. His arm shook and the crystal began to glow a deep crimson and it too pointed at the hollow. An orb of red energy began to swirl around the crystal and the hollow's eyes widened. But I can feel my own energy from that as well as that of countless other hollows. Its mind flashed back to a couple of minutes ago. The limb dropped to the ground before it was absorbed by the crystal. Of course, that crystal absorbed my arm. Shit, if that thing has a whole arm full of my energy, as well as other hollows that could do some serious damage. It flew towards Naruto, vanishing from his view, and he closed his eyes in concentration. This is a move I've only theorized about before now. I don't know how much it could do, but it's better than nothing. His eyes opened to see the hollow's face right in front of his own, and he shoved his hand in its face. The glow of the power in his hand lit up the panic in its eyes. Shit. Too late. Hollow Requiem. A large beam of crimson energy exploded from the crystal, and Naruto was sent flying back from its power. The hollow screamed as its face was engulfed in the energy, and it was pushed flying into the air. Eventually, it disappeared from sight, and Naruto slammed into a nearby wall. The large trench had formed from when he was pushed back, and he collapsed into it as all the energy left his body. Shit, I can't even move. But at least I avenged you, Dad. His eyes closed as he fell into the realm of Morpheus. A sigh could be heard, and Kisuke walked over to his prone form. Now that I wasn't expecting. He crouched down next to the boy, his cane resting on his shoulder. I wouldn't get your hope up, kid, an attack of that caliber would stand no chance of killing an Uchiha. Honestly, I'm amazed that punch didn't finish you off. But you can't hear me, can you? He sighed again. Looks like you'll be stopping over at the shop again. Let's get you out of here before Rukia and Ichigo show up. Carefully, he lifted the younger blonde into a fireman's carry and flashed away with him. Seconds later, Rukia and Ichigo appeared on the scene. Are you sure that thing isn't defective? That's the second time this has happened. Ichigo said with a blank stare. Rukia shook her head. No, something happened here, look. She pointed at the trench and Ichigo's eyes widened. Whoa, what could have done that? Rukia frowned. I'm not sure, but whatever it is, it's more powerful than the hollows we've encountered so far. She shook her head before glancing at her beeping phone. Let's go, another hollow's shown up. After quickly picking her up, Ichigo dashed towards the source of the signal. Whatever that was, Ichigo is not ready for it. The hollow hissed in pain as it clutched its mask. Half of it had been blown away, along with a good chunk of its side, including its previously regenerated arm. Damn it, my wounds aren't healing like they usually do. That damn brat will pay for this. It opened a black portal and slipped inside. I will get you for this brat, one day you'll pay. And next time, I won't hold back. In the meantime, I better find me some tasty snacks to nibble on. The portal closed behind it and the hollow was gone. So this part ends here. Alright, that's it for today's video guys. Let me know in the comments section how was the story, and also don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I will meet you in another video, bye bye.